Welcome back to Embodied Advent, Journeying with the Psalms. This week is all about the theme of joy. We'll start our practice off by reading a psalm. We'll do about 15 minutes of gentle yoga movements, and we'll end our practice with a breath prayer. Go ahead and take a few moments to do what you need to do to get cozy. Meet you right back here on your mat when you're ready. All right, welcome back. Let's get started. I am going to have you start today in a child's pose. So hips are reaching back toward the ankles or the heels, and arms are stretched forward, chest releasing down towards the mat. Take a moment to just find your favorite version of a child's pose. And try to use a deep exhale or two to just sink in a little deeper into softness, sort of letting it all go, allowing our bodies and our minds to arrive and settle on our mats. The theme for this week is joy. I don't know about you, but I like to really invite as much joy into my festive season as possible. It sounds simple, but a lot of times when I'm stressed or frazzled, just not my best, I can tend to forget that it's the simple act of stillness that can bring me into connection with God. Nothing fancy, no jumping through hoops, just stillness can bring me back into that connection. And it's through that connection that brings me back to a place of joy. We are told in the Bible that our connection with God brings joy. And that's what our psalm reading today reminds us of. We're reading Psalm chapter 16, verse 11. It says, "You show me the path of life. In your presence is the fullness of joy." In your presence is the fullness of joy. So that's our goal on our mat today, is to slow down enough to rest in God's presence. And from that presence, we allow joy to bubble up. Take just a few nice deep breaths here in our child's pose, allowing those words to settle in. And then staying right there in your child's pose, I'm just going to walk the hands over towards the right side of the body. Find a little side stretch, and you can even put the left hand over top of the right if that feels good. Breathe into the left side body. And then walk those hands one over the other, all the way over to the left side body. Option for the right hand to cover the left. Take a breath or two. And then walk those hands back center. Take one more breath. And then slowly lift, coming up into our tabletop position. From tabletop, we're going to breathe into our cat and cow. On your inhale, dropping the belly, lifting the gaze. Exhale, rounding the spine and dropping the head. Let's do that again. And then we're going to start expanding this range of motion.
So on your next exhale, we'll breathe through cat, but then all the way back, sink the hips back to a sort of modified child's pose. Inhale up to cow. Exhale back to that modified child's. Inhale, cow. All right, this time we go back to child's pose again. And then you have the option to flow up back into cow, or you can float a little farther forward, bringing the hips down into a cobra. So we exhale, child's. Inhale, cow or cobra. Let's do that 2 or 3 more times. One more here. And the next time that you sink back to child's pose, let's take a moment here, pause, maybe just rock it out. And then plant the hands firmly on the mat, tuck the toes, and lift the hips. Take a moment to say hello to your downward dog. Find any movements or adjustments that the body needs. All right, from your downward dog, let's take a nice, slow tippy toe walk to the top of the mat, bringing hands to feet. And just enjoy a few breaths here in a ragdoll sway. Maybe hands come on to opposite elbows. Head and neck and torso hang heavy. And then we roll up the spine. One vertebrae at a time, coming up to our mountain pose. And then inhaling as we sweep the arms high. Exhale, dive it down, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees as much as you need to plant the hands. And then send the left leg back, finding a brief lunge. We won't stay here long. If you find this lunge uncomfortable, you might bring the hands up onto the shin or the knee. And when you're ready, we plant our back heel. Inhale, sweep the arms high, finding warrior one. Take a few easy breaths here, inviting some softness into the body. Really just shining bright through the heart center, reaching through the fingertips. And then open it up to warrior two. Hips opening to the long edge of the mat. Arms are out at a T. Letting the breath energize us here. Feeling that strength flowing through the body. And then we flip the front palm. Inhale, sweep it back. Left hand comes down. Right palm reaches up to the sky. Find your reverse warrior. One more big inhale. As you exhale, we cartwheel those hands down to frame the front foot. Step the right foot back to downward dog and pedal it out. Check in with the breath here, check in with the body. And then find a tippy toe walk to the top edge of your mat, forward fold. Find that ragdoll sway. And then roll up the spine, one vertebrae at a time. Rolling up through mountain pose with a big inhale, sweep the arms high. Exhale, dive it down, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, find a long, flat spine. Exhale, fold, bending the knees enough to plant the hands. This time, the right leg goes back, finding this brief lunge shape. And then we drop that back heel. Inhale, sweep the arms high. Find your warrior one. Feeling that joy flow through the body, shining bright from the heart center, reaching up through the fingertips. And then open it out to warrior two. Hips open to the long edge of the mat. Arms out at a T. Since we're on the theme of joy this week, I felt like an invitation for a slightly more energizing practice, slightly more energizing flow. We'll flip that front palm. Inhale, sweep it back to reverse warrior. Left arm sweeps up and back. Big inhale, reach back through those left fingertips. Exhale, cartwheel it on down. Frame the front foot. Step it back to downward dog. Paddle it out. Check in with the breath. Check in with the body. And then take a tippy toe walk to the front of the mat. Find that forward fold, ragdoll, hands wrapped around opposite elbows. And then roll up the spine. One vertebrae at a time. Coming up through your mountain pose, and this time, let's take a moment to recenter. Just close the eyes. Tune into the body. Tune into the breath. All right, I'm going to invite you to try what is probably a new breathwork practice for you. It's called Breath of Joy, and it's one of my favorite breath practices to teach. It's a big, full body, deep breath practice, and it is designed to bring us lots of energy, really get the energy flowing through the body, and to, you guessed it, as the name tells us, to bring us joy. So it might be a little bit different than something you are used to doing. I'll invite you to just play along, try it out, see if it's any fun. So this is the way it goes. We're gonna stay in a nice, tall, comfy standing position, but we're gonna bring the feet just slightly wider than the hips and really ground down through the feet. The breath starts off with 3 sips of air through the nose and then a big exhale through the mouth. And we synchronize those breaths with arm and body movements. So I'll demo it a couple times and then I'll invite you to join in. So we're gonna go little sip in, out as we drop the arms and the torso to the mat. And then another big in. So that's the idea. Sip in, big exhale out. Let's do that about 5 times. Let's go one more. As you come back up, we can let the hands float down by our sides, eyes closed, and take just a moment to feel into that energy we stirred up in the body. See if we can connect with just a little bit of joy. Go ahead and bring your feet back hip distance apart. Find your mountain pose. Big inhale, sweep the arms high. Exhale, dive down low. Inhale, half lifts. And exhale, fold. planting the hands on the mat, sending the feet back to downward dog. Take one final breath here. And then drop the knees to the mat, sink the hips back, and swing those legs around. Rolling on down to the back, hug those knees in and find some feel-good movement, like a mini massage for the low back. And then plant those feet on the mat. Walk them a little bit wider than the hips, about mat distance apart. Bring the arms out at a T and start to let the knees just windshield wiper side to side. And the next time that the knees fall over towards the right side of the body, we'll pause there. Maybe allowing the head to fall over the opposite way. And release back through center, windshield wiper the legs. And then take it in a twist on the opposite side. And release, come back through center. We're going to come through legs up pose now. If you happen to have a pillow or a blanket nearby, you can tuck that under the tailbone. If not, that's okay. It's just a nice little extra. And once that prop is in place, we'll float the feet up to the sky, just above the hips. Maybe wiggling the toes or circling the ankles. Allowing the legs to float freely if that feels nice. And then release the feet down onto the mat. You can leave that prop in place if you have one, or remove it. Sort of play around with what feels best. We're going to bring the feet together and allow the knees to fall away from one another for a bound angle pose. Help those knees back together. And start to make your way slowly into your final resting pose. Feeling free to move through any last little stretches or wiggles that the body still needs on your way there. Coming down long on the mat. Allowing the eyes to close. Feeling a gentle heaviness flow into the body. For our breath flow today, or our breath prayer today, I should say, on our inhale, we'll say to ourselves, in your presence, exhale is fullness of joy. Inhale in your presence. Exhale, there is fullness of joy. Go ahead and repeat those words to yourself, flowing through the breath prayer for these next few moments of practice.
1 or 2 more breaths. And then begin to invite some movement into the body. Hugging the knees into the chest. Choosing if you want to bring the nose up to meet them. And then rocking side to side. Eventually coming over onto one side or the other. Finding a fetal position and taking just a breath or two to seal in that practice. Pressing up. We meet in a tall, easy seat. Ending our practice with one final breath. Inhaling as we sweep the arms high. Exhale, hands to heart center. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. I hope that this practice helped you store up a little bit of joy in your heart today, and that as you move through the week ahead, you are able to share that joy, the joy of the Christmas season, with all those you come into contact with. Thank you so, so much for joining me for week 3 of Embodied Advent. Can't wait to see you right back here next week for our final week on the theme of love.